2022 roundup and 2023 predictions on Breaking Ground. All right, boys, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Let's take a look back at 2022. So, Wes, what did you think happened in the real estate resale market?
Well, it was really a tale of 2 years.
I agree.
Right? So the
Tale of two halves.
Two halves, yes. Sorry. So the beginning half was a booming market, right? It
Like
was a
2021.
Huge fear of missing out, getting ahead of interest rates, trying to lock down that property before
Whatever.
interest rates eventually, skyrocketed, which they did.
And it was taking a lot of that 2021 momentum and rolling it into it.
Yes. The second half of the year, everything kind of slowed down.
When interest rates went up.
Interest rates went up. There was a lot of uncertainty. The war was going on. There was an election. People started talking more about inflation, more about potential layoffs, bonus seasons. The stock market started going a little crazy. Buyers really, went on the fence. That being said, prices did not come down and have not come down, and inventory is still really low, but it really lagged transactions. If you compare that with, kind of pre-pandemic transaction levels,
2019,
we were about 10 to 15%, depending where we're on, below transactional levels of that time. But we were 30 to 40% transactionally down from the year before, which was the booming year.
right.
We're looking at a more normalized market now, frankly, but because inventory is still much lower than it was pre-pandemic, and because there's all these concerns buyers have, transactions have suffered.
And what I think is a really interesting situation that I didn't predict when I was looking at everything, in 2021 was that one would think that the rising interest rates would just, slow down demand and supply would grow. But interestingly enough, there was an equilibrium reached because the interest rates wedded people to their old homes. So no one moved and decreased supply, decreased demand at the same time, and created an equilibrium, which is why
Now we're just at a stalemate, really.
Yeah.
Well, it's a historic norm for the city, right? So there are fewer motivated sellers typically in New York City than in other markets. And so we found historically, whether it was the financial crisis in 2008 or other cycles in the market, that as demand declined in the city for whatever reason, people stopped selling their apartments as opposed to in other towns where a lot of people are motivated by work or they're upgrading their apartments because of children. In New York, I think people figure out a place to live and offer to stay there, unless the time is right to sell.
And a lot of times they have more disposable income, right? So they don't have to sell when things get tough. They got enough money in the bank to get through a co-op. You need 2 years of mortgage and maintenance in the bank,
But
right?
this period also started with inventory levels already being historically low.
Right.
They're about 10% or more below the average inventory. And that's over like a 20-year period, even though that 20-year period also saw a boom of development. So there's actually way more product overall, but there's less product for sale. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, we have a similar situation in the development market where the year is bifurcated, not just by interest rates, but also the ending of 421A. So June 15th, the tax abatement program that is essential to build any kind of rentals in New York City. Under de Blasio, the city passed mandatory inclusionary housing, which means that developers have to build 25 or 30% affordable whenever they're building new development in most of the city, a program I approve and support, never contemplating that there wouldn't be a tax abatement to help pay for the fact that you've now taken 25 or 30% of the value of the land away from the developer to do developments. And so without 421A, there is...
Hold on, let's rewind there. That's just insane. So there's a law that states you have to build 20, 30% of affordable housing, but the tax incentives to do it have disappeared.
Correct. And so it is now impossible to do rental housing in New York City. Add to that the rising interest rates, right? It has dried up the credit markets for construction loans. So where we used to pay I'm a little bit 200 points over SOFR, which means we'd pay 4 or 5% for construction loans. Where now, that spread went from 200 to 300% to 500%. That's 5% if banks were offering it at all. So most lenders who were lending in the New York construction market have stopped. So now it's become
Also, your loan to value went down.
Correct. It hit the market big. So in the run up to the expiration of 421A, to qualify the program, you had to have a footing in the ground. So it was a tremendous amount of construction going on. People rushing
What
through
does it,
plans.
what does it mean for our audience? A footing in the ground, you need to put
Drive a pile, pour a concrete footing that's going to be there to hold the building up going forward. To get started, even if you didn't have full plans and full approvals to build everything you're going to build, as long as you put a footing in the ground, you could meet the requirements of still getting the tax abatement for this development. And now that's gone. So with that gone, with rising interest rates, if you talk to any architect in the city, they're dead. There's almost no new work coming in because it's really just not financially feasible.
And what's funny is that, when we're talking about new condo projects, there's very few of them now in the city that are being because of everything you said. But the ones that are there, like people that own sites that are planning to go to market at some point, in 2 years they're going to have incredibly little competition. Because everything that was envisioned has been on the market in the last 2-3 years. There's been very few starts.
So with mandatory inclusionary housing, you can do the inclusionary portion, the affordable portion off-site, but means you have to find a site that you can build 100% affordable on, and then transfer that affordability to development rights in the site where you're going to do your condo project.
But you also need the abatement because you're losing money anyway. Without the abatement, you're losing, an incredible amount of money, and nobody's going to build anything if it's just at a loss.
Right now, New York construction's dead. So, is there a hope that in 2023 the state will get itself together? The mayor and
hold on, but we're not getting on 2023 yet. We're gonna get to predictions, and we're gonna talk about the mayor.
the future is better than the past.
Let them loose, George.
Hold
Let
on.
them loose.
All right, fine.
Well, what were you going to say about 2022?
Well, no. I just wanted to look back. Like, were there some successful projects in 2022? Wes, do you remember some successful projects? I know that we were speaking today to DE Developments, and I know there's certain successful projects, and like there's one in Gramercy right now that they were talking about, but it was all very price driven.
The downtown projects
Yeah.
are doing well.
Yes.
Right. There was a project on
But in a price point, so they were talking. They're talking like if
$3,000 a square foot.
yeah, $3,000 a square
There was
foot.
there was a
Heavily
pro-
discounted.
Heavily discounted, exactly. On a blend, 3,000. I mean, there was a project on University that sold out before even going to market.
Right, university's university.
And then it was at 3,000 or so a square foot or whatever. There was a project in Battery Park that did really well, which is surprising considering a financial district isn't doing well.
But the water is always beautiful, and there's a lot of amenities that have been built over the last couple of years, since...
Beautiful area.
Yeah.
I think it's obviously Battery Park is very different than the financial district in
That's
terms
right.
of what it offers. But
Yeah.
But if you live there, it's a long distance relationship with anyone else on the island.
exactly.
You really feel like you might as well be on Staten Island.
No, come on.
I'm not sure about Staten Island.
Yeah,
We've done a lot of work in
Hoboken.
Battery
It's
Park.
like
It's
Hoboken.
it's still part of Manhattan. It's still part of
Brookfield
Manhattan.
Place is really nice. I think there's some really good options, for amenities down in.
It certainly has changed over the last
Yeah.
20
It's
years.
a family community area.
Yeah. I don't think we're allowed to say that.
You can't say family.
You can't say family. You can't say it's just an area for people who breathe. Did I exclude anyone? Did
I meant to say people who breed.
Right. Okay. Right.
Maybe
What happened?
that's why people are going down there.
Exactly.
Yes. Let's talk about what we see coming down the pipeline in 2023. 421A, the government, what are we looking for?
Well, we finally have a mayor and governor who don't hate each other. It's the first time in 3 mayors and governors that we finally have a mayor and a governor who have the same vision, that understand there's a housing crisis and that we have to build more. 2 big items that they're looking at that would make a difference, that would increase the maximum density of residential you can have zoned. So right now in New York City, the highest residential zoning density you can have is 12 FAR. So for every square foot of land you have, you can build 12 square feet of residential housing. That's actually, that cap of 12 FAR is set by the state. So we need state legislature to lift that cap, to raise it to be equivalent of the often commercial cap, which is 15 FAR.
And
what
would
that means,
what will the result?
it allows you to convert office buildings, for which there is currently 90 million square feet of unoccupied office space in New York City. That's like 700 football fields of unrented office space in New York City.
700 football
Football
fields.
fields of unrented space. Unless the city does something to allow us to convert the older, less ideally designed
B and
office
C.
buildings in office, which is like Midtown East. Think Midtown East is a lot of office buildings with relatively low flooring to ceiling heights for office use, but perfectly acceptable ceiling heights for residential use. So we need to convert that stuff so that we have more housing and less offices, because that's what the city needs.
Just to clarify that, right? If you have an office building, some people might think, oh, well, you just convert it into residential, but it doesn't really work like that. Most
Correct.
of these office buildings need to be taken down and built back up.
Or they need to have 20 feet sliced off them. In an office space, it's not unusual in New York City for us to have 100 by 100 square foot plates, right? So that the buildings are square, 100 by 100. For New York City residential housing, you typically don't want to have your kitchen more than 30 feet from a window. So we build a lot of buildings not more than 70 feet wide, right? Because it's two apartments facing each other.
And does everyone understand what this means? Because an apartment can't be so cavernous that the window is like 5 yards, and it creates interior bedrooms with no windows, which is not legal.
Which we could change, right?
Right.
So, the current zoning, which means if you don't have a window, you don't have a bedroom, is great, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. If you had proper ventilation of that interior one bedroom, or that interior bedroom, it could still be a bedroom. It wouldn't be ideal housing, but we have a housing crisis.
Right.
Let's make the rules a little bit more flexible so that we still have healthy housing, right? Make it LEED, make it have no contaminants in the paints and the flooring and the glues, and have it well ventilated, but allow us to build space that is, or we're converting a building, right? We're converting an existing building from office to residential use. Let us have more flexible zoning so that we can build some unideal spaces, which will be cheaper, right? Now you'll suddenly have 3 bedrooms that aren't costing $3,000 a foot on a discount, and more families could live in the city. And if you do that in connection with having at least 25 to 30% affordable, you could take these giant million square feet office buildings and be generating 100, 200 affordable apartments in each one of them.
I read this week that that probably by mid-year that the mayor is going to offer some kind of incentives to start developing those. Have you guys heard about this? That you don't think it's true? Like
I don't think it's enough.
I don't think it's enough. Correct. It's not.
It's nice to have incentives, but without 421A, it's not enough.
Or without changing the residential density to equal the commercial density, it's going to make it impossible to convert the office building, which requires the city and the state working together. The concept is there.
And I think the mayor's aware.
He put together a commission that had 100 people on it, architects, engineers, expediters, and developers, to get the ideas. Listen, I think the mayor's heart's in the right place. He's trying to do the best job he can. I happen to like the mayor. It's a tough time, and I'm not saying I can't be critical,
It's
but
also not 100% up to the governor or the mayor of the city. There's a whole other contingent of politicians that need to
the legislature,
approve
which
this,
is filled with
and
crazy people.
There's a large portion of those people that are not necessarily on board with this for whatever reason, whether you agreed or not. They're the votes you need.
So trend 1, we need to see change, right, in order to revitalize the 90 million square feet of unoccupied office space. Phase 2, if that doesn't happen, if New York continues to screw itself, as we will do regularly, watch New Jersey, right? Because in New Jersey, land is cheaper, development rules are simpler, getting approvals is easier, and there'll be a lot more rental product built in New Jersey. If I had a friend moving to New York City today, I would tell them go look in Jersey.
hold on.
And the truth is developers have a knack of finding places to develop that make them the most money. And if New York City is not that place, it's
Correct.
easier for a New York City developer to go to New Jersey.
Agreed.
My point is they don't have to travel to Texas to do it.
No, of course.
Eric Adams this past week or a week ago, 2 weeks ago, announced his Get
shot.
Stuff Built program, where he's saying that he's going to get 500,000 units built in 10 years, and that he's going to do that by doing precisely what we're talking about, by cutting development times in half, by removing a lot of these restrictions.
So all
that we're
of these
talking about.
things are really good. Like you said, his heart's in the right place and the idea is really good, but the execution of it requires tax abatements and other financial
hold on,
incentives.
Even with the tax abatement aside,
there's
even with
nothing-
tax abatement
yeah.
aside, we built a building that we finished roughly 2 years ago, And we still don't have our permanent CO. Why? Because the fire department has to approve your sprinkler submission. And the fire department is backlogged in approving sprinkler submissions a year.
But
right?
that's precisely
one of his proposals is to
take
take that away from the fire department and put it in the plumbing division, where the plumbing division already approves all the plumbing in buildings, right? Put it in the plumbing division of the buildings department, let them approve the fire department's, the fire alarm and fire sprinkler submissions, so that you can get your CO. Otherwise, you're waiting for a permanent CO for 3 years.
And I don't think that I think that's a mayor's.
That's a mayor. That's totally the city
in his purview.
The city can do things that will make things easier. For instance, let me finish.
The pre-certification
We don't
process.
need to. We don't have to have 421A. We have 421A because the zoning bonus that the city gives, which is 1/4 of a square foot for every 1 square foot of affordable housing you build. Who would take that deal? There's no one who would be motivated to build affordable housing where you get 1/4 of a square foot of market rate housing in exchange for 1 square foot of affordable housing. If you reverse that process and said, you know what, for every square foot of affordable housing you build, you can build 5, 8, 10 square feet of market rate housing, you'd be having developers build affordable housing all over the city with no tax abatement. But there is a price. The price to be paid is less sunlight on the streets, because it means taller buildings. So the question is, if you want more affordable housing and you don't want to have a tax abatement for the development, make the development bonus for the building of affordable housing more generous, and you can do it. But there's still a price to be paid. So the question is, do you want to pay the price in the form of a tax abatement, or do you want to pay the price, for the general people, pay the price in the form of taller buildings being around?
Well, I think
I'd pick either. We're in a housing crisis.
I think if you're a progressive politician,
you pick neither. You just take price controls. You know what? We should just set the rent for every apartment in the city. It's all $1,000 a month, even for the 3 bedrooms on the Upper West Side. A discount for Gramercy. $1,000 for a 3 bedroom in Gramercy, and that solves the problem.
Perfect.
It does solve the problem.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, let's
for
talk
everyone but the people building.
or the future of the city.
But
there'll be nothing else built.
No, you should do it for free.
You
do it for free, and they'll give you a candy bar every 3 weeks.
So the progressives in the city don't want anything built because they think developers make too much money. That's the reason. These guys are just getting too rich, and so stop them.
But you know why? There is zero risk in development.
None.
Nothing, especially going into the ground.
And the returns
and you can predict the market in 3 to 5 years with 100% accuracy now using ChatGPT.
Exactly. That's right. And the returns
I love how we squeezed.
I get better returns. I get better returns in a stable stock market.
I love how we squeezed ChatGPT in this.
As we should.
As we should. Everyone should be talking about it. So in regards to Adam's plan, what do we think? Do we think speeding up the pre-certification process would help?
Of course. It shouldn't take a year to get a building permit. Absolutely.
Right. Exempt small housing projects?
Sure.
Yep.
Allow architects to self-certify small housing projects.
Okay. Improve traffic analysis. Like there's a lot of Soho, you're building in Soho. There's a lot of traffic. All done. Thank you.
You're not building more roads. If you say, okay, the problem with building another 1 million square foot residential building that's going to be 30% affordable is that it's going to cause traffic. That means you can't build anything because there's going to be more traffic.
Does that mean more traffic? Anyway, there couldn't be more traffic in Soho. Streamline construction inspection. We spoke about that already. Clearly,
it's much better than it was. I can tell you right now, construction inspections are much better than they were. They're much more professional. And it's a much better environment than the one that I started with
20 years ago.
20 years ago when it required having cash in your pocket.
No, I don't know a ton about this, but Governor Hochul announced 800,000 units for all of New York State. Do you know what she's doing?
Well, 421A doesn't just screw New York. It actually just screws the whole state in terms of getting affordable housing built and more housing built. And, in a lot of towns, each town has its own process for approving development sites.
Right.
And because of that, you can wait 2 years to try to get something approved, in Westchester.
Right.
What she's saying is that if you're half a mile from a town center or a train station, there should be no red tape for any affordable project.
Yeah, of course.
And as it should. I mean, especially as people, work from home more, this idea that being on these transit lines is going to help everyone.
But there's a dirty little secret that no one wants to say, is these towns in upstate New York, they don't want any affordable housing. It's not that the red tape is slowing down affordable housing. The red tape is preventing the building of affordable housing because the towns don't want affordable housing. Affordable housing means more children
in the schools,
more police that require in theory, that poor people are worse people, so they have to be more policed. So they have higher expenses, and affordable housing is untaxed. So they get no increased tax base to pay for schooling and policing, and get a higher expense
the
in schooling and
taxes
policing.
in like a place like Scarsdale's $50,000 a year, and it's paying for the schools. And
So unless that changes, right, affordable housing is only getting built in New York. I've built in enough towns in upstate New York and New Jersey where they're trying to ask you, is there a way you can get around building affordable housing? Can you pay into a fund? We'll let you pay into a fund instead of actually building it, which is how most towns will do it. We're going to have an affordable housing fund. And instead of building the affordable housing, you'll pay the town $200,000. You'll pay the town $1 million, and we'll use it to help upgrade current housing that is here in the city and make it more better quality affordable housing.
that's fascinating.
Welcome to the real world.
Yeah. What do the progressives think about that? Huh?
Just saying, it's not like you're going to go to Scarsdale and the town council is going to be, oh, yay, we got affordable housing getting built.
All right, let's get into predictions.
All right.
What's going to happen?
New Jersey. The future of New
Jersey.
York
The future
is
of
Jersey
New York.
City. The future of New York is Jersey
no.
City. I have a few projects coming.
I
I have a few projects coming. You will hear about them.
No, Lou is developing projects in Jersey City, but that is a great place to develop.
That's right.
But-
And in Hoboken.
But that is not.
I don't agree that the future of New York City is Hoboken or.
By the way, I say that
Jersey
as a
City.
Brooklyn born and raised person and as a way of
But you're saying that
telling.
you're a traitor to your.
Exactly correct. Telling New York, stop screwing yourself.
No one ever grows up and says to themselves, when I grow up, I want to move to Jersey. They say, I want to come to New York.
The governor of New Jersey recently said he literally put this in the State of the State address. He wanted to make it coming from New Jersey being cool again. When was it
never
ever
get
cool?
cool,
When was it
yeah.
ever cool? When
Never.
Frank Sinatra moved out of Hoboken?
When The Sopranos was on.
Or was it
Yeah.
Bayonne? When The Sopranos was on. Yeah, that's
The
that's
Bada Bing
cool.
is a great place to go.
Yes.
Like, come visit Jersey. Go to the Bada Bing, 2023. So in regards to resales, I think we're gonna see
We're going to be in a normalized market.
a normalized market. I think prices are gonna probably
I think it's going to take a little while for buyers and sellers to agree on where transactions should be. I think transactions are going to be at 2018, 2017, 2019 levels. I think prices are going to be relatively flat but trending down. I think that that pricing is going to be buoyed by the fact that there's going to be limited inventory. We're already
limited.
seeing, Goldman just laid off a bunch of people, and we're already seeing,
the tech dream is now ended.
look, there are some new development opportunities to buy, but there's not that many. And the ones that are there are very expensive.
No, I think there's 6,500 new development units available, 1,000 on the market, a bunch of shadow inventory.
But the inventory levels
Is going
are
down and down and down.
25% lower than they tend to be.
So, and
right?
with no
So-
new construction being built, we're looking at in 2023 the same housing crunch that we've been familiar with.
Well, think
Even
about
worse.
it in 2024. Developers are going to recognize the fact that there is a lot of uncertainty, interest rates are high, and demand is down a little bit. And they will be giving people incentives, maybe not initially, but at some point, if they're not getting the result that they want, they will start selling their inventory, which will create the new development inventory to go down significantly in 2023, one way or another.
Because you can't if you're going to take an inventory loan to try to pay off this,
You're not going to do that.
loan,
It's
no,
going to be
it's
too
high.
expensive. You
It's
don't
gonna
want
be
to
too
do
expensive.
it.
So you can't.
So it's better to actually
sell.
sell the unit at today's price, whatever that is, than refinance your construction loan in some way at a very high interest rate and take on the risk of an inventory loan, because inventory loans tend to be
But you're talking
predatory in that the banks are looking to take the
But
inventory
you're
from
talking
you
about,
if you don't perform.
But Wes, you're talking
Am I
about the
wrong?
inventory.
And in fact, I'm sorry, on another, when you take that to the next level, right? So if you have people who are motivated sellers, right? So that's what you're talking about. You're going to generate motivated sellers in New York City, and rents keep going up. It then becomes a better investment. Some people have thought, I'm going to buy an apartment and rent it out and make money. It doesn't pencil out very well in New York City. We think about real estate rentals in terms of cap rates, the income you're getting divided by the cost of what you had to buy to get that income. And those rates are like 3% in New York City if you're buying an apartment and renting it out. And 3% is very low. It means you're getting the equivalent of a 3% interest rate
with a lot of risk and
That's right.
and
No, but relatively
very little
risk.
liquidity.
Right.
No,
but
relatively-
but if you
Well,
were
I'm
in,
talking, no, hold on. I'm talking about risk in that you are going to have vacancy. That 3% is based on a model that might not actually be, because you're looking at your rents.
it doesn't
Like, if
matter.
you know-
It's not a worthy investment. You can get buy Con Ed stock. You get 3% dividend. You can get 3% for with no risk and no effort, as opposed to managing
ultimate liquidity.
managing tenants, right? And you can get your stock. You can sell your stock any day you want. You can buy a bond for a 4%. You can buy a 2-year bond for 4%, and so it doesn't make any sense to buy an apartment to rent it out to get a 3% return.
Particularly when
but
you're
if you
also-
have motivated sellers and you have a strong rental market, that might grow up, make it better. If you can find a place that's generating a 6% return, it might be worthy.
And what's also interesting, we touched upon it before, is that there's nothing being built.
That's right.
So this supply
There's
is
still
gonna,
people want to live here.
the supply is going to go down and down and down. There's still the ballet, there's still the opera, there's still the theater, there's still the restaurants. New York is still New York.
That's
So-
right.
so-
And never forget, home is where the home is.
Oh, shush.
Home is where the
Oh,
home
sorry,
is.
home is where the home is.
Get it
The
right.
tagline we used on Instagram this week. And
So Lou, I have a question. 421A, does it come back?
No.
And how horrible is it?
I don't think it comes back. I think that the legislature is too crazy.
but they're going to find new ways around it. We're going to adapt. And
I think the
buildings
way
will get-
around it is to change the zoning bonus so that you can, if you give a developer a bonus where you can build, I don't know, 5 or 10 square feet for every affordable square foot, and let them build a 15
accomplishes the
FAR
same thing.
or a 20 FAR instead of a 10, then you'll suddenly get a lot more
And is
affordable
all
housing.
that within the city's purview?
That's right. Oh, no. The density bonus, the density to build greater than 12 FAR has to be passed by the state.
by the state.
Right.
So it's still
And why
the-
do they care? Why does the state care whether or not buildings are 20 stories or 50 stories in New York City?
Why do they?
Right. Well, it's just the way it is, right? So, because at one point they did protecting property owners, right? So if you let a city rezone property to be 50 stories from 20,
No. The people in the West
there
Village,
used to
the
be-
people in the West Village would not be happy to see the character of their neighborhood.
But you don't
change.
have to do it in the West Village. You
the
can do it
People's
in
Republic,
Midtown where they already
the
have
People's
the big
Republic
building.
of the West Village wants nothing changed, nothing built.
But the thing was with the West Village. It used to be a dump. 1960, that's where you went to shoot heroin. like why do they, they got to keep the character. Give me a break. The character was drug addicts. When you, in 1990, where'd you go buy weed? In Washington Square Park. What's the character? So our prediction for resale.
They want statues of Jane Jacobs. That's what they want.
Right.
Is build nothing. Change nothing.
So for new development, we're going to see.
But Hell's Kitchen, if the mayor is watching, and I know they're not, if the mayor is watching, rezone Hell's Kitchen.
right.
All 60-story, all residential, 30% affordable mandatory, and you'll get something great.
Yeah. And it's already a great neighborhood.
It's already a great neighborhood. It'll become even better, and you'll get a lot more supply in a place where people aren't as sensitive to the height
Because
of
they're
buildings.
used to tall buildings.
That's
there.
correct.
Just review for resale. We're talking about markets trending down a little bit over the year, but transactions evening out to a historical norm. And in new development, what we're talking about is most likely
A pause.
a pause.
Yeah.
A pause as everyone figures out what's going on and sees how things are going to pencil out.
As the city screws itself. Yes.
Thank you so much for watching Breaking Ground. This is Lou Madigan. This is Wesley Stanton. I'm Jordan Hoch. Tune back in another 2 weeks. Like us on YouTube and whatever you do. Follow us on Instagram and Happy New Year!
Never forget, home is where the home is.
Home is where the home is.
Dumbest statement.
I know, that's why I'm not doing it.